Welcome, welcome, everyone. Come in. Today is going to be so much fun. Everybody knows I love jazz, but honestly, it's more of like I know my brain is about to get like molded in some clay and I'm going to have to go take a nap after this because it's always when we get into these numbers and the way that you show them, I think it really opens up people's eyes as to how they can get into land and how they can get out in some like really beautiful ways. And Jazz, I have to tell you, the last time we did this, I went back to watch the recording and the recording didn't do the whiteboard. I know.
Okay. Well, good to know. So we'll use some other tools if we need to do something like that. So
Or there's a different way we need to record it. But even if we were rehashing that for people, I think we'd be adding huge value. But I also see, hi Anthony, hi Vlad. You know how we like to do it here on our Q&As every Thursday? It is fireside chat mode. These amazing people do not show up and give their time unless they can add value to you. So in a lot of ways, you're here to help steer us in the right direction to bring that value to you. So if you can, um, show up on your screen with your face. That's always helpful. Thank you, Vlad. I see you've done that even though you're driving, and I really appreciate it. It just allows us to engage with you, see how you're reacting, and make sure, like I said, we're bringing that value. Hi, Jazz. Thank you for coming back. How are you?
you anymore. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm really good. It
Good.
has been a busy season as we're kind of ramping up and seeing more buyers move and some sellers getting interested in, oh, what would it look like to actually close before the end of the year? So there's some, tight timelines and motivation that starts to happen around the holidays, which is when we turn to you and go, oh, help us.
This is the perfect timing then. I'm glad deals are moving. There was a little bit of a slow dip for a while. So this is great news. And we're seeing the same thing on our side. We had a little downturn for a while. Our money was out and working strong, but new leads were kind of slow. The past 2 weeks, we've been pretty busy. So it's a good trend.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the big things that I've been running across is people in that exact situation of, oh my goodness, I thought I could get a 90-day, 120-day contract, and they're not having it at the right numbers. So I think one of the big questions I have is you can rehash like what are the right numbers where you can swoop in and help so people aren't wasting your time when they bring something to the table for private lending.
Yeah, we are definitely going to dig into that a little bit. And I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that whole whiteboard thing because, yeah, we were going to get into some numbers today. But I thought it might be good just to take a little bit of a step back. And when we're talking about navigating lending for vacant land, just making sure that everyone is aware of exactly how it works so that as you're going out right now and you're securing contracts, you know what that timeline looks like, what the process looks like. Sometimes we have people who come to us and they're like, I'm thinking about flipping land and I might need money. And I'm like, that's nice. Um, but maybe a little bit too early in the process. And we get those folks who come in and they're like, yeah, I have closing in 3 days. What can you do? And I'm like, I guess I'm not sleeping for 3 days. Okay, we're gonna make this work. So trying to figure out what is that right timeline. So as we're planning for the rest of the year, you guys have a really clear picture, not only from the number side so that the deal works, but also in the process side. So we get the timing right, the title company's happy, you're happy, the buyer's happy, and smiles all around. Yeah. Good. Excellent. So shall I share my screen or is there anything else before we get going here?
Please jump right in.
Jumping
I'm gonna
ship.
go give a few people a poke because y'all can't be texting and calling me all week going, what I need funding? And then I bring through the star of all stars for funding and you aren't here. So I'm gonna go give a couple people a poke to catch
No
this.
worries.
And if you do go into whiteboard mode, that's totally fine. I'll record it on my own screen as well, and we'll have multiple recordings. So this time we catch it.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay, let me go ahead and share. Forgive me if I'm looking at multiple monitors. I'm just trying to make sure I can see the right people. Okay. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Excellent, excellent. All right, so just like Corey had mentioned, we're going to be talking about how we're navigating private lending specifically for late acquisitions. And into that, we'll talk about how private lending works, some of the benefits to you as land investors, and some key considerations, especially the things I wish I knew when I first started looking for money in my own land business. So today we'll get into why you need a private lending strategy in land acquisition. So Corbin mentioned this a little bit before. You know, a lot of you are coming from organizations that teach a lot about wholesaling, which is fantastic. Maybe talking about some more creative stuff that I like to do, like sandwich lease purchases, sandwich lease options, wrapping notes, buying on a creative basis. But sometimes your buyers are just like, nah, I want money. So, and I want it yesterday. So in those situations, we'll talk about how you can use private lending as a part of your strategy to keep your lending business going strong. Some of the things I'll talk about is what I wish I knew before I took my first loan. It did work out in the end. It's all a happy story, but knowing what I know now, I would have structured things a little bit differently. You know, going in knowing my numbers so I know how to negotiate rather than just saying, I have a deal. What can you do for me? That's not really the best position for you to be in. And today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of my secrets so you can be in a stronger position when you're talking with other private lenders. And then finally, some actionable insights for land investors. I really want you guys to walk away from this knowing how to do something, not just being entertained for an hour, because we all have better things we can be doing with our time. Y'all need to be making money. So let's show you how to do that. Okay, so what exactly is private lending? Well, let's talk about what it's not. When we think about going to a bank, um, first of all, we're thinking about an actual bank, a building. It's a national brand, Bank of America, Bank of New York, Wachovia, something that's pretty standard. There are very specific laws and regulations that these institutions have to abide by and maintain. Certain interest rates they're allowed to charge. They can't go over certain rates. And a lot of rules that are tied to working with banks. And because of that, you know, they've got to dot their I's and cross their T's. So they take a lot of time. They're very, very careful about who they lend to, how much they lend in that regard. And they're very good at that too. Very good at background checks, credit checks, going through your pay stubs and, you know, the blood type of your firstborn child. It's just a very different kind of lending structure. And when we think about banking institutions, that focus is very much on you. What is your credit score? What is your history in this business? How long, you know, has your company been around for 2 years or more? They're really focused on the individual. Private lending is not that, right? If you think about the absolute opposite, rather than going to an institution, you're just going to regular people, right? Anyone with a 401k is a private lender. Anyone who is saving up for college, they're a private lender. Anyone who has a health savings account and that $6,000 a year that they're stuffing away for their health savings, you know, if they're smart and they don't want to pay taxes on the money going in and they don't want to pay taxes on the money coming out, that is like the most unicorn solution that we have right now. But yeah, anyone who has that kind of account and it's self-directed, hey, they're going to be a private lender for you. So when you walk around and you think about, oh, it'd be nice to have private lenders, I couldn't get on Jazz's schedule, like, woe is me. Literally everyone in your life has the potential to be a private lender for you. So just think about how broad and available this is. The other thing is with private lending, it's not that we don't care about you, but we care a lot more about the asset. So rather than spending a bunch of time going through your pay stubs and your credit scores and why you missed a payment in, you know, 2002 on your medical bills, rather than that, we're looking at the asset, right? Is the asset worth what we think it's worth? So and I say this because, you know, I run into some people recently who have been doing everything on their own because they had a little bit of a hiccup in their credit report and they're used to hearing the word no. That's not us. If you've got a quality asset, that you're getting for 60 cents on the dollar, you should have zero problem getting a loan against that property. There's a couple of ways we can do that for you. Okay. All right. This is where we're going to play. We're all in the private lending space. So there's different types of private lending that we're going to go into. And after this, we're going to kind of break away a little bit from the deck and talk through some specific examples. So from the easiest stuff to the more sophisticated, we've got transactional funding at the top left. This is the easiest kind of deal that we do. Transactional funding, we're going to lend you the money at 10 o'clock in the morning. You're going to buy that property at 10 a.m. You're going to double close it at 2 p.m. Seller comes in, they buy it from you at 2 p.m. and we get paid back same day. In most states, you don't actually need transactional funding. If you're using the same title company, for most states, you should be able just to have the title company keep the money, and just settle everything the next day. But in certain states, California, Carolinas, they do require transactional funding just because of the way things are recorded, and sometimes it's just considered illegal in that state. But in that case where they don't allow for double closings, we're more than happy to lend you the money same day. In terms of diligence, very little diligence is done. The most important thing that we want to see with transactional funding is that the BC side of the deal, when you're actually selling the property, your buyer has already deposited their funds with the title company. As long as that has happened and the contract has been signed, pretty much not going to have a bunch of scrutiny on transactional funding. In terms of rates, we are somewhere between 3 and 5 points, just depending on what's going on. Our minimum is $950. So even if you're closing a small deal, $20,000, $15,000, it is going to be $950 at the minimum that we charge just for all of the work that has to get done. But other than that, it's a relatively reasonable fee to pay to do a double closing. There are other lenders out there who can go down as little as 1%. And can do millions of dollars. So really should not have a problem with transactional funding at your top left. Moving over to the top right of the screen are the hard money loans and gap funding. So we see this a lot when you are need to buy the property, but you don't have a buyer just yet. Or maybe you have a buyer. In the case of gap funding, you do have a buyer, but they're not ready to close just yet. Maybe you need to buy the property for a week or even 3 months while you're finishing up some diligence for your end buyer, but you do have a buyer on the hook. The big difference between a hard money loan and gap funding is whether you have a buyer that is ready. Okay. Gap funding is also used sometimes when you already have a loan on the property and you just need a little bit more to get you to the end goal. So maybe an example would be you find a piece of property, you took a hard money loan to purchase the property outright, but you realized after doing your due diligence that if you could just get a wetlands survey and a boundary survey and maybe chop up that land a little bit, you could now subdivide and sell it for a lot more. But that work could cost you, $5,000, $10,000. It's not a lot of money, but it's a pretty penny if you don't have it. Gap funding could be an extra loan on top of your hard money loan, just to, again, get you through that gap. And with that said, gap funding tends to be a little bit more expensive than hard money loans. Hard money loans, you should expect to pay, if you're dealing with your own community, anywhere between 10 and 13%. If you're dealing with professionals who do this every day, you should probably be willing to pay between 15 and 18% right in this current interest rates environment. Hopefully, if interest rates come down, that number will too. But right now, that's what we're looking at. All right. Moving down to the bottom left of your screen, this is my absolute favorite thing. Those are notes. And notes are really cool because after you buy the property and you decide to sell the property, when you sell the property with owner financing, that's great. You just got a nice fat down payment. Hopefully that was enough to take care of your seller. And you've just secured a retirement plan for yourself because you've just set up payments for the next 5, 10, 15, 30 years. that's going to be mailbox money until that property is paid off. So I love to see when land investors are creating notes, you are just setting yourself up to be wealthy in the long term. But that sometimes doesn't work out and you just need cash. And I hear you. That's why we're here. So if you are not in a position to wait for your money, we've got tons of people, again, who are saving up for retirement, saving up for college, saving up for a big fat wedding for their kiddos, and who would love to get that cash flow today. So we would swoop in and buy that note from you. And we'll talk all about different cool, fun ways we can do that. But that's where the notes come in. And then finally, I have a little asterisk with this one because it's not really lending. But equity partnerships are another option for you. I say this cautiously because in all of the three other scenarios I just talked about, you have some sort of recourse. If the borrower does not pay, if you are not able to pay for the loan, we can come in and take something. We can just take the property. So instead of you having to struggle through that property and struggle to getting it sold, we'll just take it off of your hands. We'll wipe everything clean, no harm, no foul, and move on to the next deal, right? We're all professionals here. Sometimes it happens. You just got to wash your hands and move on. In the case of an equity partnership, for you, you've done the work to find the property, get it done. You know, when we're talking about all these other loans, you're talking about maybe 5 points on a super expensive transactional funding. Maybe you're talking 18% on a super expensive hard money loan. On a note, you might be originating that note at 12% and selling it at 20. So maybe you took, you're selling it for 80 cents on the dollar or 90 cents on the dollar. When we talk about equity, you're giving up half of your profits, not a couple percentage points. Half of your profits are gone. Okay, 40% of your profits could be out the window. So equity should be something that you should take very seriously when you're bringing in partnerships, because not only are you taking on a partner for money purposes, and a lot of your profits could be gone when you do that, but you're also taking on it's a marriage, right? Until that deal is done, you guys are joined at the hip, decision making and everything. So be very careful about who you decide to go into partnerships with. And because they are cheaper and because there's more of an arm's length distance, I would highly recommend that you explore the other three options before digging into equity partnerships. Now, once you get your groove in the land flipping space, maybe you want to be an equity partner. If you're really good at comping, if you're really good at marketing, if you're really good at acquisitions, dig into your niche. That's great. And then you can partner with other people who are great at other aspects of the business. But if the only thing you're looking for is money, equity partnerships are the most expensive option, and you're sometimes inviting people into your business and they don't even know your business. So keep that in mind. I'm going to pause right here for questions because a lot of times people come to me and they just say, I need money, and they haven't even thought through how they want to structure this. So I'm going to open up the line for a second. If you have any deals that you have been working through and you're like, I'm not really sure the best way to structure it, I'd love to hear some real world examples and we can talk through that.
I have a question, Jazz.
Yeah, Vlad, shoot.
How do we get a hold of you if we have a deal?
Excellent question. So the best way to get a hold of me is by going to privatemoneyinstitute.com. And then I guess I could show you. I'm like, just in. Okay, here we go. So right here, privatemoneyinstitute.com, you go right there. And then if you are looking to borrow money, you can click on borrowers up here, come down to borrower down there. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. We just talked about the different kinds of lending that we offer. So you can come if you want to sell a note or you need a loan, you can just click right here and put in your application right away. Not only will that flow through to our board so we get instant notifications that a deal is available, you can, and I highly recommend you do this, it's totally free, you can come and schedule a pitch. So not only do you just get put into a list of people who need money, but you can have 20 minutes FaceTime in front of me and 20 other private lenders who are all itching to put their money to work. And it's just a conversation. It's something that you have to prepare on a super rigorous thing for. If you've gone through the work of acquiring that property and you're trying to market that property, you've got everything we need to ask questions, learn a little bit more about the deal, and ultimately decide whether or not we can fund you. Does
Thank you,
that help
Jess.
that?
Yes,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Excellent. Any other questions on deals that you have right now that you might need funding for? You're just not really sure how to make it work or how to structure it. I see you
Is that
looking,
something,
Anthony. What's up?
is that something you offer in the brief discussion, or how do we get the information from you?
Say that one more time. How do you do it in the brief
If we're
discussion?
if we're struggling on how to structure the contract or structure the offer of the financing, do you offer services that help that?
Absolutely. So when you come in to schedule a pitch, it is a conversation. So we do see folks, actually the majority, I would say, of our new investors do come in and they don't know. They're just like, I got this piece of land. I need to close in 3 weeks. What you got for me? And so we can talk through that together. You know, in that situation, a private loan probably makes the most sense. But we have actually talked people out of doing business with us. For example, we had a conversation with a lady once who was coming in, and at the time we were offering loans at 15% and 3 points. And you know, she was really trying to make that work. The numbers looked good for her, but then we didn't ask. She had a while on the deal. She had already been in the deal for 5 months, and it was the last month of her contract. They were winding down. The seller was getting a little antsy. They've been patient. They were getting antsy. And so we asked her, you know, we're going to charge you 15%, but what on earth is the seller going to take? But you know, but the seller runs money. I'm like, I know that right now. And for the past 5 months, that seller has been receiving nothing but a promise. Would your seller be open to getting $300 a month until you sell it? $500 a month until you sell it? Would they be willing to do that just to extend the contract? Because $300 a month or $500 a month is better than nothing that she's getting right now. And then now she just got herself a lender, and we actually worked it out with her so that she set it up as a lease purchase. So, but 100% of her payment, she ended up doing it for $400 right in the middle. 100% of her $400 payment went directly towards the purchase. That's a 0% interest loan. We would never 0% loan. So coming to those pitch calls, yes, we want to get to know you as an investor and we would love to do business with you. But at the end of the day, if you can walk away and figure out how to make a deal work, sure, we didn't get that deal with her. She got a much better deal with the seller. Seller was over the moon ecstatic to start getting payments, number one. She was over the moon ecstatic to have a 0% interest loan until she got that property sold. But guess what? Since then, we've done, oh my God, six deals with her, right? So it's not always about that one deal. We're happy to grow with you and grow with your business over time. Does that help, Anthony?
Yes, it does. And from your experience, what's the sweet spot you like to see the percentage of the loan to value be at? 60, 65, 45, 40? Is there a sweet spot where if I bring you a deal and I've got this negotiated that way, it's pretty much going to be an autopilot versus having to struggle with it?
Love that you asked that question. So let's go through that. For transactional funding, I literally do not care. It can be 100%. I don't care because someone on the other side is going to cash me out same day. When we're talking about a note, we can offer no more than 70% of what the property is worth. Okay. And then after that, it's more about understanding the numbers because every lender is a little bit different. I need to see a 20% return on my money year over year on a note. Other people are 18 is fine. Other people 15 is fine. So What that means for you is that some people say we'll pay, if you have a note for $100,000, we'll pay 90% of the note value. So our max is 90,000, or our max is 80%, 80,000. We're a little bit more nuanced from that. So it's a little bit harder to give you a solid answer on the note side. But what I will say is that for any note that we buy, we cannot pay more than 70% of what the property is worth. Okay. So if you have $100,000 property, hopefully the borrower has put down 20%. So that automatically brings your note down to $80,000. The most we could pay for that would be 70,000, just because that gives us the equity of the 70% of the 100K. Is that clear?
Yeah, that makes clear. So, yeah, I want to make sure I'm understanding my question too. I have a property and it's worth 120,000, and I've got it under contract for, let's say, 50,000.
Yeah,
That 70% would be of the value of the property, not my contract, correct?
absolutely. It's the value. And so we have,
good. That makes sense.
I haven't bought a note for face value in quite a while, but for private loans, yes, we can do up to 100% loan to cost. So your cost, yeah, we can do that, but as long as the value is there. Now, for private loans, we do go up to 60% of the market value. We'd like to be 50%, but we understand it's been getting a little tough out there for you guys to secure properties at that price point sometimes. But 60% is our absolute max for a private loan. And that goes for gap funding as well as hard money loans. First or second position.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then on the capital partner side, when we're talking about equity, that is really the Wild West. Every investor is different. I have not done equity in about 2 years. I'm waiting to get cash out of 2 of my equity deals. And then once that's done, maybe I'll reconsider it again. But every lender has a totally different perspective on their minimums and maximums for equity deals.
Yeah.
Great question. Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome.
Can I piggyback off that scenario? Because I run into it a lot. And so I'm going to ask it for the people that ask me. And I saw Everett. Hi, Everett. I don't want to step in front of you. I want you to also get your question in. But let's say that, yeah, I've got it under contract at 50,000. I can sell it at, I'm not even going to go as extreme as 120. Let's just make it an even flat 100. Now, I would imagine you need skin in the game from me on the purchase of that 50,000 if it was a private money loan, right?
No. Well, a lot of people do. A lot of other lenders do. But we're land flippers as well. We understand how this business works. If you are getting that property for 60 cents on the dollar, girl, we can figure out how to make this work. So no, like I said with Anthony before, we can fund up to 100% of your cost of that property. And that includes closing costs as well.
What about if I know that, okay, I can sell it right now for 100. We're on the cents for the dollar. But if I had an extra 10, 20K and I added a dirt road in certain areas, that all of a sudden I'd be at 150. Do you help with like that development cost or that additional entry, or would I need to bring that to the table on it kind of expanding what my sale price would be?
Question. So that would be in this 2-part scenario where there is the cost to purchase the property. That would be a regular hard money loan. And then we would get a second loan, a second private loan that would be more gap funding. And that second loan is going to be more expensive because there's more risk involved with that. So yeah, I hope that once you put in that road, everything is good. But before we would even give you the money to do that, we would want to see that you've already done the work to get your surveys done. You have approvals from the city. They're okay with you doing this. And once you put in that road, it is viable. So you can go ahead and subdevelop it out. But absolutely, we can do it. But we want to be good partners with you because we never want to put you or anyone in a situation where we've lent you all this money and come to find out you can't pay it back because of things we just didn't know. And Corianne, I'm glad you brought up these scenarios because I want to reframe a little bit this whole idea of I couldn't get a loan. Sometimes, guys, that is the biggest gift we could offer you. Is it no? Those 2 equity deals that I've been in for the past 2.5 years, I wish someone had said no. Okay. So if you come to a group of active real estate investors, most of us are still flipping land. Some have not, some do not. Some are corporate and have never flipped a piece of property in their life, but they know how to read numbers like nobody's business, right? And they know their diligence process. If you come to a group of 20 of us and not one person says, yeah, this sounds like a good one, I would use that as free coaching. And
Yeah, no freaking joke.
at least ask questions like, okay, why is nobody interested? And then you're going to hear, oh, we have some concerns about setbacks. I used to be marketing. I used to do some marketing in this area, and I had really some hard issues with getting my water rights. Or make sure that you're checking the wetlands because I've had experience here with that. This is an excellent way to get free coaching for 20 minutes. So even if the answer is no, you are in a more valuable position than having yes, and then 6 or 12 months from now, you've got some very angry lenders on your back.
Thank you for saving us from that. I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of having a private money lender and somebody who knows these options because they've been a land flipper that makes it so beautiful. Because, I mean, if you've been under that bus and ate that gravel before, thank you for saving me from that trip. I will stay on the sidewalk.
Not fun.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Everett, did you have a question for Jazz?
Yeah, real quick, if we were putting properties up and we were going to state our lending terms for buyers, what general, numbers should we be putting out there in terms of the term, the interest rate, down payment percentage, just so that it looks appealing to sell as a note?
Asking that question, Everett. Thank you. Okay, so when you mentioned it, but I just want to be clear. We're specifically talking about you are selling your property and you're creating a note, correct?
Right.
So in that regard, for us, it's our 10, 20, 30 rule. Okay, so we like to see loans that are 10 years or less. Now, if you do have a longer loan, that's not a problem. That's not a bad thing. In fact, I'm starting to get some lenders who prefer much longer loans. But I will say, if you do create a longer loan, you should probably plan on selling just the first 10 years of it. And here's why I say that, Everett. If you have a loan for 100, let's say you got a piece of property for $120,000, they gave you 20,000 down, and now you've got a note for 100K. That $100,000 is going to be paid out over the next 30 years. All right. You can go ahead and give up all of that cash flow, or you can just sell the first 10 years of payments. That first 10 years of payments hopefully is enough to get you, out of the closing table so you can pay off your seller. Hopefully that's enough to give you a good chunk of change so you can celebrate over dinner, toast that you got for another deal. And then you're not going to get your huge payday up front, but what you do is, like I said before, you set up your retirement plan. You use us just to get over the hurdle. Because 10 years from now, Everett, hopefully you're not sitting on this call and so hoping and praying to get through your next deal. Hopefully you're on a cruise ship somewhere, you're on a beach somewhere, and checks are just coming in. So 10 years from now, if you consistently set up that practice where, and that's how my husband and I, my husband retired from rentals, but that's how I retired. We spent 4 years of diligently flipping land focused on owner financing. Now, this isn't going to set me up for my entire life. Most of those notes were only written for 15 to 20 years. But dang it, if I haven't figured it out in 20 years, I got other problems.
Gotcha.
Right. So I would love to see that. And that's why that 10-year mark is really good. That's enough time for most people to have a good runway, because I want to see you succeed as well. Okay. So that's 10 years or less is what we like to buy. You can do loans longer than that, but just be prepared to only sell 10 years at a time. 20, we want to see 20% down payment. And the reason we do this is because we are not banks, right? Let's go back to our little piece here, we are not pulling credit checks. We are not
Right.
pulling bank stubs. How do we know that this borrower is quality? The asset. They're willing to put 20% of their own money into this deal. So Corianne was talking about skin in the game. That's what we want to see from the person who's actually going to be living in this property. All right. So as long as you've got that, we're pretty solid, 20% down. And then 30%. This goes back to what I was talking about with Anthony. We want to have 30% equity in the deal. So if you have a $100,000 property, they put down 20%, check, check. Now you've got a note that's worth $80,000. Still, the max we could offer is $70,000 because we need 30% equity, just in case we have to take back the property and sell it and all that stuff.
Got it.
Okay, excellent.
All right. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. That's a great question. Great question. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up with the process. And then while I'm doing that, if you have, Everett, you had a really good question about a note there. If you have a note that you're kind of pondering on, I think somebody else, I don't know if it was Vlad or Anthony, had an actual deal that you were thinking about. If you want to pull together those numbers, we can actually work through those numbers in the last about 10 minutes of the call. So for the next 10 minutes, let me just run through the process so we're all on the same page here. All right. How does this work so you can plan accordingly? Number one, get a property under contract. I love having conversations with you, but it is really not a good use of your time to come and pitch an idea to the group. Because there's just so many factors that we could change and manipulate. So unless you have at least a few of those points nailed down, we're just going to be talking in circles. So get a property under contract. Once you do, pitch your deal to anyone who will listen to you. Yes, I'm telling you that I should not be your only source, right? There's going to be months where Jazz just ain't got it, right? And there's months where Susan just doesn't have it, right? So anyone who will listen, you should be pitching your deals. You can do this on Facebook, on PaperStack, on Facebook groups. It's an excellent way to do that. But you should be talking to as many people as possible about what you have to offer. And remember, you're not out there begging for money. You are offering an opportunity. I like to say that I'm rescuing money from the bank. Right. So for all of my friends and family who are excited to earn 4% in their CDs right now, which it's not bad money, you know, I'm rescuing that 4% money and I'm introducing them to 10% for the first time in their lives. So you're not begging, you're offering an opportunity. Once you get there, we should agree to some terms. Now, the order, I debated on doing the order for this. Let's say pitch the deal and let people fall in love with the opportunity with you. But you should have an idea of what you're willing to give up. So the same way when we think about you make your money when you buy, you are really going to come out better in this deal if you have an idea of what's your budget for interest payments. How much of this deal are you willing to give up? Okay. So I would go in and set a budget and say, you know, if I have this property that it's worth $120,000, I've got it under contract for $60,000, and I keep it simple. Am I willing to pay an extra $5,000 for that money, an extra $10,000 for that money? Go in with a hard number of how much money is going to be leaving your pocket before you start having these conversations. If you do not have a strategy and you don't say, this is my budget, you may not have to say it, but in your head to yourself, like, this is my budget, you're just going to go with whatever people say. And if you're dealing with a lot of experienced flippers, like fundmyland.com, fundthatflip.com, you will very easily see yourself paying 20, 25% in some of these loans. So go in and say, yep, I got the property for $60,000. I can afford to pay an extra $10,000 for the money. And then start the conversations from there. But once you find a lender where, you know, you said you had a budget for $10,000, you're finding a person who's able to charge maybe 15%, that's going to work out to $8,000 for you. Great. They match your budget. They're okay with your term. Something that you definitely want to consider when you go into a negotiation, consider things like optional extensions. Because I love to say that every deal that I write closes exactly on time and absolutely as expected. Doesn't happen. So let's plan for that. As an example, well, before I give an example, can you guys tell me what would you like to see? You have this loan, it's a 12-month loan. You've been working your butt off to get it sold and you are so close. You have a buyer, you're just trying to negotiate the last terms, but your loan is coming due next week. What would an extension look like to you? Like, what would you be willing to pay to get that extended for an extra 3 to 6 months?
Depends on how much I'm making in that sale, but I would certainly,
Fair.
to make something, I'd be willing to pay something. Absolutely.
Oh, that's fair. How much time typically would you need? So just to be clear, all of our loans are written for 12 months. So generally speaking, what would you like to have as a buffer just in case? And any number is fine, just throw something out.
10K.
10K?
Mm-hmm.
$10,000? Oh, damn. Yeah, girl, we're going to do business.
I would. I mean, especially if I'm gonna make, at least double that in regards to the closing, because otherwise, what's the other situation?
Nah,
Like,
you're absolutely right. You lose it.
exactly.
Anthony, are you raising your hand? 0? I don't know what they're saying.
I was just saying 0.
Sorry, it's not worth it to you.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
got you. I got you.
if you're doubling your money, it's all green, it all spends.
Exactly. If everything's green, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So just to give you an idea of some standards that we do, typically whatever the points are that you had when you originated that loan, 3 points, 4 points, whatever that was. By the way, does everyone understand what a point is? Okay, cool. So just to be clear, points are, it's the percentage that we charge for a fee. So if you have a loan for $100,000, we would charge 4 points or $4,000 as a fee for doing our due diligence, drafting up the paperwork, going back and forth to the title company, making sure everything is recorded. That's just the fee. So whatever the points were that we negotiated for your original 12-month loan, usually that's the cost of extending your loan again. Because theoretically, from a lender's perspective, if you had paid us back like we expected, like go out, write another loan and get another fee. But, if you're just going to hold on to our money much longer, now we're not happy, now we're frustrated. But it's like, hey, go ahead and pay you those points you were going to earn somewhere else. I'll pay them right here and we can still be happy together. That's a totally fair thing to offer when you are negotiating your own optional extensions. And remember, you don't have to do an extension, but it's always a good idea to, I like to say, plan the divorce while you're in love. So at the very beginning, when you write your loan, ask for an optional extension just in case you need it. Okay. So that's one thing you can do is offer some additional points. I do the same amount of points, but if you say, hey, I only plan on extending another 3 months, then I only want to pay 1/4 of the points that I paid before. If I want to extend 6 months, I want to pay, half of what I was going to pay, what I originally paid. You can get creative, and I'm giving you some of my secrets. So normally I'd charge the whole thing, but these are points that you can use to negotiate. And you go in with eyes wide open. And if it could save you a couple $1,000s, why the heck not? Okay. Great. So third step, agree on some terms. I like you to have some terms in the back of your mind as you are pitching your deals. But once you start getting feedback from your lenders, that'll definitely refine the terms that are right for you. Then buy the property and create the note. All right. So in terms of a hard money loan, you're going to go ahead and buy that property on the AB closing. You are going to sign the promissory note and the mortgage, or in some states, a deed of trust. And the lender, they don't have to sign anything. All they're going to do is just wire the money to the title company. And that takes care of your AB transaction. And then once that's done, you go to work, you do your magic and you get that property sold. Okay. Again, you don't normally have a year to do that, but with the optional extension, that can go out 18, 24 months in some cases, especially in some of these cooler development projects. And at the end, on the BC closing, that's when the lender is going to get notified that you are ready to close. We'll give our contact information and our wiring instructions to the title company so they can pay us back for the initial investment, any outstanding fees or outstanding interest payments. That all gets handled through closing, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll sign and release you from that lien. So the mortgage will disappear after we sign and make it so when we get paid. After that, you keep whatever profits you've made and you just run off into the sunset and do it again and again and again and again. All right. So overall, this is the flow of how things work. Any questions on the documentation? Any questions on working with title companies, or if you have one AB title company here and then a different BC title company there? We've done everything. So working with retirement accounts, trusts, any questions at all on the process so that you're clear on how to approach this. I cannot see you, so I'm going to look over. Yeah, there you go.
I will ask this for a lot of people that might want to show up and pitch a deal, but a little nervous to sit in front of all y'all because it's a lot of smart minds for the first time and probably trip up a little bit. So what are the things that can help us on that first time not look like such a newbie when we come and bring you a deal?
I love that you're asking this question because sometimes I'm like, people want to have a one-on-one with me, which is fine. I'm happy to do that. But you're only getting one opinion. Why not get 12 opinions or 20 opinions? But I understand it's a little intimidating. So to help you with that, when you come in, click on the borrower. Oh, I think I already had it here. Well, when you go in to schedule your pitch, we actually help you through that whole process. This is completely optional, but we are here to help. So there's some more information over here about how it works, but right here in the deal pitch, we have samples that you can use. So if you're looking to sell a note, for example, you can click on that and the template pops right up for you. And we walk you through everything that we want to know about your company, a little bit of information about the property that you have, give us the details of how much you need to close that deal, how many points you're willing to pay for that, the interest rate that you've got. So you can walk through, we tell you what we need to see in order to make that work. And again, we always market this as an opportunity. This is definitely not, you're not begging for money. We want your deals. We want to put our money to work and you've got something valuable. So this should help you go through that process of understanding your deal really well and then communicating that with us. Okay.
Huge. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. You know what we could do? I should post a couple of deals that have already closed so you can get to see, you know, what the full conversation looks like. It is super not intimidating, I promise. Super easy.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Sweet.
So may I pick on Everett, or I think it might have been Anthony, I'm not sure. You mentioned that you did have a deal you were considering. We do have 9 minutes that I want to save to walk through an actual real life deal with somebody on the call. So I'm not just picking on Everett and Anthony, it's just that you spoke up earlier. But if you have a deal and you're thinking, maybe I can sell this note, or if I could get the loan to buy this property, I could make some real money. I would love to talk through that together.
Anthony, do you actually have numbers on the deal that you were thinking about? I think it was you that brought that up.
I have the contract price. I have a property that's I have under contract for 125. It's worth about 240. And The problem I'm having is in New York. New York's hard to work in, so I'm struggling a little bit with some of the dynamics. If I could pick it up, I could subdivide it. As I already got a approval for apartments to be put on it. He's got all the documentation. He just 80 years old and is tired of working on it.
Mm. I'm sorry, I'm on my husband's computer and I am trying to just maneuver. Let's go through this together. So one more time, what's the contract that you have been under for?
125.
Mm-hmm.
The property comps out at about 250 plus as just vacant lots, vacant land.
Mm-hmm.
Improved probably a lot more. It's already got the paperwork filed with the county to have it subdivided for apartments. It's been approved.
If you do the apartments, what would that be worth? Do you know? Just the
I'm
land.
thinking about 600,000
Okay, it
from the
sounds to
number
me,
from
sir,
the.
like you got to figure out how to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I just heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's go through how this might work. So first of all, let's talk about your budget for this. If you could get that 125,000, approximately how much do you think you need? Let me do this is going to be your as is value. How much do you think you'll need in order to get it ready for
It looks like about
the
60
subdivision?
grand.
60,000. Okay. So as is value 250, the and then the after repair or after renovation
Mm-hmm.
value 600. All
I used
right,
to flip homes
so
too.
exactly. I'm using some old terms, old housing terms. All right, so first things first, let's make sure that we've got the LTV just as is to see what we could do for a hard money loan. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've got 125 divided by 250, you're right at that 50% LTV. This is perfect. You should have zero problem getting 100% of your costs covered on this deal. That's an easy one.
Okay.
For the 60K, are you in a position to do that yourself? Or are you looking for some help on that?
Looking for some help.
Gotcha. All right. So this is a pretty easy one. So that extra $60,000, what we would actually do is if I come in and I lend you the $60,000 after someone else has already lent you 125, it's not
Mm-hmm.
realistic for me to say, my interest is only 1/10 of what the value is. It's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this defaults in some way,
Mm-hmm.
the person who gave you 125, they are in front of me. They're going to get their money
Mm-hmm.
first. So I
Yeah.
still, even though I'm not giving you that money, I have to consider that in my cost. So for me, I'd have to say it's 125 plus 60, 185. That's like the all-in costs.
Mm-hmm.
But still, 185 divided by the 600 that it's worth. Again, you should have no problem raising that
Okay.
extra capital. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so LTV here would be basically 31%. Easy peasy. Okay. So in terms of your budget, in order to make this deal happen, do you have a number in mind? Like how much can you afford to pay to make this deal work?
Out
We're
of
starting
pocket
with
monthly or out of pocket?
600,000.
Yeah.
So we've got 600, just to be clear, we've got 600, let's do the full zeros. $600,000 is what you'll make at the end,
Mm-hmm.
taking away the 125 that you have to borrow, minus this other 60 that you're going to borrow.
Mm-hmm.
That is your potential profit so far. How much of that money can you set aside to pay for your debt?
As far as liquid cash today or liquid cash out of the deal?
No. Once everything is sold, how much are you willing to give up to make this deal happen?
If I'm walking away with 100K or more, I'm a happy camper.
You're okay. So you giving up $300,000 is probably too much.
Yeah.
So you
I'm,
can,
I'm a,
I
yeah.
appreciate you,
Yeah.
but wow. Okay, very good. All right, so your budget, let's just go ahead and put your budget is $300,000 to make this deal work. I think with that budget, sir, we can make you very happy. So
Yeah.
with that said, You're gonna walk in, this is ridiculous. At the most, I'm gonna let you get away with 100,000. And
Okay.
even that is gonna be really high. But I want you to walk into every negotiation with the idea like that is a part of your costs, your top line
Mm-hmm.
costs you can consider. What we can do, we've got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to be really quickly. I'll give you a couple of options. I'm going to give you the highest, most expensive hard money loan that we do. Hard money loan 1, it's going to be 18% and 5 points. In that scenario, well, it's 5 points. In that, and let's assuming that that's going to be for 12 months. Okay. That 18%, this is not going to be amortized. This is a standard loan. So of the
Mm-hmm.
full 125 plus 60, hold on, sorry, 125 plus 60. So of the total $185,000 that you are going to borrow, we're going to multiply that by 0.18. That is how much money you're going to pay in interest for the first year. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that
Mm-hmm.
in parentheses here. We talk about interest rates, but what the heck does that mean to you, right? Real
Mm-hmm.
money, there it is. Then we need those 5 points, and the points are usually paid up front. So of that $185,000 that you're borrowing, you are going to pay fees of $9,250. If you like, we can lend you that money up front. So rather than lending you 185, we can lend you the 194 so that
Okay.
it's just taken out of the loan. But that's just something that you can keep in mind and consider. So overall, your budget was $100,000 for this loan. But really, the most expensive loan that we have to give you, it's only going to cost you $42,000. It's going to cost you $42,000 in interest plus $185,000 in acquisition and development costs, and you walk away with $600,000. So, what I would encourage you to do when you're doing your calculations, you come in here and you're very clear. This is my purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
This is my prep costs. And get rid of that budget here. This is my cost of capital. Walk into every conversation with these numbers in mind. So as you are considering, can you spend a little bit more on a different surveyor? Should you take down the timber? Like all of these things, keep cost of capital as a real number, not these random percentages that no one understands. Okay. And then it'll help
Mm-hmm.
you be a better negotiator. So when someone says, I can do it for 15, you might not know the exact number, but you do know it's going to be cheaper than 33. If someone says, I can do it
Okay.
for 20, you might not know the exact number, but you're like, okay, let me go calculate exactly how much that is and will it fit into my budget?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. All right, we are 1 minute over, and I get so excited running through all this stuff, but Corey and I'm handing it back over.
Guys, if you can drop a little bit of love in the chat for her taking some time to break this down, because this is where land becomes more than dirt. This becomes wealth and future and what we can do for generations. So thank you, Jazz, so much for spending some time here. Of course, we want to let you go to your family and cute kiddos and the generations that we're building this wealth for, right? So thank you again. I always get so excited. I can't wait. I will one day be presenting in front of you and many other lenders because you're giving us all this info. So thank you so much. Guys, we are not going to be here on Thanksgiving, but the week right after, we've got somebody extra special for you guys. So please join us every Thursday at 6 p.m., except for Thanksgiving. Can't wait to see you guys then. Have a great rest of your night and a great weekend. Bye, y'all.
Bye.